The wind moved slowly through the empty streets of a ruined town. Dust floated in the air like ghost smoke. Broken windows rattled. The buildings were cracked, burned, and silent. Only one man walked there now. Jacob Hale moved carefully across the shattered road, his boots crunching on broken glass and dried leaves. He held a small metal scanner in one hand and a rusted pistol in the other. His brown coat was torn and his face showed signs of tired days and cold nights. The war had ended years ago, but Earth never recovered. Aliens had come. They fought humans, burned cities and captured thousands. Then they left, or maybe retreated to space. No one really knew. All that remained was ash, and survivors like Jacob. He was searching for food, shelter, or anything useful. He hadn't spoken to another soul in 2 weeks. Suddenly, the scanner in his hand beeped. Life sign detected. Jacob froze. His eyes moved across the nearby buildings. One stood taller than the rest. An old church, partly broken, its roof caved in, but its bell tower still standing like a stubborn ghost. The scanner pointed in that direction. Must be a rat, Jacob muttered. Still, something pulled him forward. He walked up the cracked stone steps. The heavy wooden doors hung open, one barely attached to its rusted hinges. Inside, the church smelled of wet stone and old fire. Sunlight poured through broken glass windows, painting colorful patterns on the dusty floor. Jacob took one step forward. Then he heard it. A sound. Soft. Faint, like breathing. Or maybe crying. He turned his head. The sound was coming from behind the old altar, a place once used for prayer. Jacob raised his pistol slowly. He walked around the side of the altar. What he saw made him stop in shock. Crouched in the shadow, pressed against the cold stone wall, was a woman. But not human. Her skin was pale silver. Her long dark hair fell across her glowing blue eyes. Her arms wrapped tightly around 2 small children, who hid their faces in her side. She trembled as she looked up at Jacob. Her voice was thin, scared. "Please, don't hurt my babies." Jacob lowered his weapon instantly. Hey, I'm not here to hurt anyone." The woman's eyes darted toward his pistol. Jacob quickly placed it on the ground and stepped back, showing his empty hands. "I swear, I'm just a traveler. I was looking for food. Maybe a place to sleep." The woman didn't speak. She just pulled the children closer. Jacob saw the fear in her face, and not anger, not hate, just fear. "I didn't even know someone was here," he said gently. "This town's been dead for years." One of the children peeked out from her side, a small face glowing softly, eyes wide with confusion. The child looked no older than 5. Jacob sat down slowly on a broken bench a few feet away. He kept his hands on his knees, palms open. "I'm Jacob. I used to be a mechanic. Then the war came. Lost everything. Now I walk, I look for food, and I try not to die." He smiled sadly. "Not much of a life, huh?" The woman didn't smile back. But she didn't run either. After a long silence, she whispered, "Sila." Jacob leaned forward. "Is that your name?" She nodded once. Jacob looked at the children. "Are they yours?" She nodded again. He pulled off his pack and took out a small tin. "Here," he said. "It's not much, just some dry berries and bread. They're not poisoned, I promise." He placed it on the ground and slid it toward her. The children looked at the food. One reached out, but Sila stopped them. Her eyes stayed on Jacob, testing him. Then, slowly, she allowed the child to take a bite. Jacob relaxed, but before he could say another word, a deep growl echoed outside the church. Jacob stood fast. His scanner beeped again. Unit 42 patrol drone nearby. He turned toward the door. In the distance, between trees and fallen buildings, a shape moved. 4 metal legs, glowing red eyes, long sharp tail. A hunter drone. Jacob whispered, "Damn it." It caught the movement. He turned to Sila. "You have to hide. Now." She looked frozen in fear. Jacob rushed to the back of the altar and opened a trapdoor beneath the floor, the old church crypt entrance. Down there. Go. Sila hesitated, then grabbed her children and crawled down. Jacob grabbed his pistol. He turned to face the door. The drone stepped into the light, scanning, sniffing. Jacob aimed his weapon, his heart racing. He had no plan, no backup, but he wouldn't let them be taken. Not again. Under the old church, the air was cold and thick with... Sila sat against the stone wall of the crypt, holding her children close. The two little ones clung to her, silent and shaking. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark like small blue moons. Above them, heavy footsteps echoed through the church. Slow, mechanical, dangerous. The hunter drone was searching. Sila looked at the trapdoor which Jacob Hale had sealed shut behind them. She didn't know who he really was. Human, stranger, possibly a threat. But he had not hurt them. He had shared food. He had told her to hide. And now he was standing alone above, against the machine. Sila closed her eyes. She whispered softly, in her own tongue, a lullaby she barely remembered from her homeworld. Her people were gone, but the song remained. Above, Jacob stood still behind a broken pillar, pistol ready. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. The drone sniffed the air with its long snout. Its red eyes scanned the floor. Then it moved toward the altar, toward the trapdoor. No, 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 Jacob whispered. He picked up a brick and threw it toward the back wall. Clang! The drone turned at the sound, then darted toward it like a predator. Jacob used the moment to step out and fire, bang, bang. Sparks flew from the drone's side. It roared and turned sharply. Jacob ducked behind a pew as the drone fired a pulse shot. The wood exploded into flames and smoke. Not good, he muttered. He ran across the aisle, firing again. Another shot hit the drone's front leg. It stumbled. Jacob took cover behind a statue and reloaded. Come on, you ugly toaster. The drone charged forward, but as it moved, its back leg snapped in the rubble. Jacob stood, aimed carefully, and shot one last time. Direct hit. The drone's head sparked, and it collapsed with a heavy crash. Smoke hissed from its core. Jacob didn't celebrate. He just dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Then he turned back to the altar and opened the trapdoor. Below, Sila flinched when she saw him. Jacob raised both hands. It's gone. You're safe. Sila didn't speak at first, but she nodded, slowly, and whispered, Thank you. Jacob reached into his pack and pulled out a small flashlight. He set it on the ground and turned it on, casting soft yellow light across the crypt. We can stay down here tonight, he said. It's quiet, dry. I'll block the door. Sila hesitated, then said, Why are you helping us? Jacob didn't answer right away. He sat across from her and looked at the children. One was asleep, the other staring at him with wide, curious eyes. I've seen people run, Jacob said. Humans, aliens, everyone. I've seen people shot for food, sold for power, and I've walked away from it all. He looked Sila in the eye. But today, I didn't want to walk away. She studied his face. Are you a soldier? Jacob shook his head. Not anymore. He leaned back against the wall and let out a slow breath. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said. Just rest for now. That's all. Sila looked down at her children. Then slowly she nodded. A long silence passed. Then she whispered, My name is Sila. The older one is Elrin. The little one is Tia. Jacob smiled softly. Nice to meet you, Sila. Hours passed. The night outside grew colder. Sila sat quietly, watching Jacob as he checked his gear, wrapped his arm, slightly burned, and adjusted the flashlight. Finally, she spoke. There were others. On the ship I escaped from. My people. But they are gone now. Jacob looked at her. You escaped alone? She nodded. The crash. Only we survived. He lowered his head. I'm sorry. Sila hugged her children tighter. They told us humans were cruel, that you destroy what you don't understand. Jacob looked up. That's not always wrong. She tilted her head. But you shared food. He chuckled. Yeah, well, I get grumpy when I eat alone. Sila almost smiled. Almost. Then she said, I don't know if I can trust you. Jacob replied, then don't. Just let me prove I'm worth trusting. In the quiet crypt, surrounded by old stone and war-torn memories, a small understanding formed. Not friendship, not yet, but a silent deal. A promise made without words. He would protect them. She would give him a chance. Above them, the wind moved through the broken church, and, somewhere in the dark, another signal blinked red. Something was watching. The sky above the old town turned darker. Inside the crypt beneath the ruined church, Jacob packed his bag in silence. Sila watched him carefully while her children, Elrin and Tia, lay curled up in sleep beside her. Jacob's scanner beeped softly. Signal. Transmitted. He frowned. No. That thing sent a signal before it died. Sila sat up straighter. What does that mean? Jacob didn't look at her. He was already loading his pistol. It means we're not alone anymore. Above the crypt, in the cold air, a small silver drone circled overhead. It blinked once, red, then vanished into the sky. Far away, above the atmosphere, a dark ship received the message. Inside, armored figures moved into place. Target confirmed. Asset, Sila. Orders, recover or terminate. Back in the crypt, Jacob pulled the trapdoor. Opened just a little and peeked outside, clear sky. Dead quiet. But he knew that quiet. It wasn't peace. It was waiting. We have to move, he said, turning back. Sila stood, holding her children's hands. Go where? There's an old storm drain that leads to the hills. I saw it yesterday. It's not far. She nodded. No more questions. They moved quickly. Jacob led the way through the narrow crypt tunnel, flashlight in hand. Sila followed, holding both children. Their footsteps were soft. Careful. Above them, engines hummed faintly in the sky. They reached the exit, a broken sewer pipe, half hidden behind rubble. Jacob helped the children through, then Sila. Just as he climbed out, his scanner screamed, Life forms approaching, fast, 5 signals. They're here, he said. He turned toward the group. Run, now. They raced through the ruined streets. Jacob's boots pounded the ground. He held Elrin's hand while Sila carried Tia, who was too small to keep up. Behind them, shadows moved fast. Flashlights swept the buildings. Voices shouted in a harsh, alien language. Target is close. Move in. A beam shot past Jacob's head. Burning a hole through the wall beside him, he dove behind a car, pulled Sila down with him. We can't outrun them in the open, he said. Sila's breath came fast. What do we do? Jacob peeked over the car. We fight smart. They ran into an alley. Jacob broke off the side mirror of a car and tossed it behind them. The mirror bounced across the road, sending confused light into the enemy's scanners. The hunters paused. Jacob grabbed a broken pipe and jammed it into a nearby gas valve. He struck a spark with his blade. Boom! A fireball lit the alley. Sila and the kids crouched low as heat roared behind them. Jacob didn't wait. Go! Go! Finally, they reached the storm drain. Jacob pulled a rusted door aside and waved them through. Sila crawled in with the kids. Jacob followed and shut the door behind him. Darkness. Silence. Only their breathing. He turned on the flashlight. The tunnel stretched ahead, damp, cold, but safe. For now. They walked for a long time. No one spoke. Then, Elrin whispered, Are we going to die? Jacob looked down at him. No, he said. Not today. They reached a dry chamber at the end of the drain. Old brick walls surrounded them. There was a small hole in the ceiling, letting in a bit of light. Jacob sat down, breathing hard. We'll rest here for a few minutes, Sila nodded. She looked pale. Her arms shook as she held Tia close. Jacob reached into his bag and pulled out water. Sila took it, grateful, and helped her children drink first. Then she looked at Jacob. Her voice was quiet. "You could have left us." Jacob looked at her, serious. "I don't leave people behind." Sila looked down. "I've seen humans do terrible things. I've seen aliens do worse," Jacob replied. A pause, then he added, "But I've also seen people, real people, protect each other. Across races, across war. That's who I choose to be." Sila met his eyes. In that moment, something changed, not with words, but in the space between silence and trust. Outside, high above the clouds, the alien ship circled again. This time, it sent down a Hunter-class scout, bigger and smarter than the drone Jacob had fought before. It activated its tracker, and it followed the scent of fear. The small underground chamber was quiet. Water dripped slowly from a broken pipe overhead. A soft circle of moonlight fell through a crack in the ceiling. It lit the faces of Sila and her children as they sat close together, wrapped in Jacob's old blanket. Jacob Hale sat across from them, cleaning his weapon. His hands moved carefully, but his eyes kept watching her. Sila looked tired, not just from running, but from years of hiding. Her arms held Tia, the youngest child, while Elrin sat beside her, drawing circles in the dust with his finger. After a long silence, Jacob finally asked, "Why are they chasing you?" Sila looked up. He said, "You're not just any refugee, are you?" Sila didn't speak at first. Then she whispered, "No, I'm not." She looked at her children, then back at Jacob. "You deserve to know the truth." She stood and walked to the center of the chamber. The moonlight caught her silver skin and made it shimmer. Her voice was calm, but something deep in it trembled. "My name is Sila of the Azure House. I was born on the planet Aurelia 7 before the war reached us. My people were peaceful. Scholars, healers, singers." She paused. "But the galaxy doesn't reward peace." Jacob listened, saying nothing. Sila continued. "During the invasion, the Rovery came to our world. They promised safety, but they wanted power. They studied us, took our technology, and when we refused to give more, they betrayed us." Her voice cracked. "They burned our libraries. They destroyed our cities, and they hunted my family." She looked down at Elrin and Tia. "These two are all that's left of my bloodline. My children are the last of the Azure House." Jacob's eyes narrowed. "So they're not just after you, they're after your bloodline?" Sila nodded. "In our people's code, royal blood carries more than title. It holds a genetic memory, old knowledge passed down through generations. Like instincts? Stronger," she said. "Our songs can unlock ancient machines. Some of us, like Elrin, can access technology with a whisper." Jacob looked at the boy. "That's why they want you." "Yes," Sila said. "To control, just to control everything." A long silence followed. Then Jacob asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell me before?" Sila looked at him, her eyes shining in the dark. "Because I didn't know if you would sell us, Gyan, or save us." Jacob stood and walked to the wall. He leaned against it and crossed his arms. "I've never sold anyone. I lost my brother in the war. He tried to help refugees, got shot in the back by someone he trusted." Sila lowered her head. "I'm sorry," Jacob nodded. "That's why I help. Maybe because I couldn't help him." Suddenly, a soft humming filled the room. Jacob turned, ready for danger. But it was Elrin. The child was staring at the wall, where ancient alien markings had begun to glow faint blue. Sila's eyes widened. "He's remembering." Jacob stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "Those symbols, they're from a memory code, a defense system. My ancestors used to hide sacred sites inside Earth's soil, long before humans even stood up straight." Jacob blinked. "Wait, are you saying your people were here before us?" Sila nodded. We left markers, songs in stone. Triggers passed through blood. She placed her hand on Elrin's shoulder. Elrin carries it now. The memory. Jacob looked at the glowing symbols on the wall. This place isn't just a shelter. It's a vault, Sila whispered. A last seed of our world. Outside, the enemy had begun moving again. The Hunter-class scout hovered over the city ruins, scanning deep into the ground. It picked up a pulse, alien in origin. It locked on, and it moved fast. Back in the vault, Sila placed her hand on the glowing wall. A soft hum answered her touch. Suddenly, a small platform rose from the floor. On it lay a thin metallic disc, glowing with soft blue light. Jacob stepped closer. What is that? Sila picked it up gently. It's a memory key, one of the last. It holds the blueprint to our people's oldest city, and the power to rebuild. Jacob's face turned serious. And now they know you found it. Sila nodded. We can't run anymore, Jacob. He looked at her, then at the children. His jaw tightened. Then we fight. Sila blinked. You'd fight for us? Jacob loaded his weapon and looked her straight in the eyes. No, with you. The glowing disc in Sila's hands pulsed softly as if alive. The memory key, the last relic of her people, now rested between hope and destruction. If it fell into enemy hands, everything would be lost. If protected, it could light the future. Above the hidden chamber, the world had changed. Jacob Hale stood near the stone stairs, watching the scanner on his wrist. Red dots multiplied across the screen. Inbound. 4 ships, ground units. Heavy. He looked at Sila. They're not sending scouts this time. They're sending an army. Sila held her children close. They want to erase us. Jacob nodded. Then it's time we erase their plan. They moved quickly. Jacob led them up to the old church ruins. It was broken, but its bones were strong. He pointed to the fallen walls, the bell tower, the shattered altar. We'll make our stand here. Sila looked around. This place was sacred once. Jacob smiled faintly. Let's make it sacred again. Together they worked through the night. Jacob set up tripwires using broken wire and energy cells from fallen drones. Sila placed the memory key deep in the altar and sealed it with her voice. Her children gathered stones and used chalk to draw ancient symbols around the perimeter. Symbols Sila taught them, symbols of protection. Jacob built a small radio jammer from old parts, blocking incoming signals. Let's see how they fight without their eyes and ears. They worked in silence, side by side, human and alien, no longer strangers, just survivors. As dawn touched the ruined sky, Sila stood on the church steps, wind in her hair, silver skin glowing in morning light. Jacob walked up beside her. He held out a small knife. She looked at him. He shrugged. My brother always said, if you fight with someone, give them your best weapon. Sila smiled. This blade is human. It is, he said. But it's yours now. She took it and slid it into a strap on her leg. Then I will use it for your people too. They stood together silent. Then Sila whispered, no more hiding. Jacob nodded. No more running. Far above, the Rovari command ship dropped lower. Its shadow swallowed the town. Inside, Commander Threx, a cold, reptilian alien with sharp eyes, watched the display. Sila of Azure is below, with the last key. An officer asked, what are your orders? Threx narrowed his eyes. Burn the church, kill the man, capture the children. Back on the ground, the hum of approaching engines grew louder. Jacob placed Elrin and Tia in the crypt and kissed their foreheads. If anything happens, Sila stopped him. They are my children, but you are part of them now. Jacob felt something heavy and warm move inside him. Not fear. Family. The attack began with a sudden roar. Transport ship descended, doors sliding open midair. Rovari foot soldiers dropped to the ground, armor glowing, weapons ready. but the ground beneath them exploded. Jacob's traps lit up the ruins with fire. Screams filled the air. He fired from the bell tower, sharp and steady. Scylla moved through, the rubble like wind, her blade cutting with purpose, her voice calling commands in an ancient tongue. Each move she made was graceful, not trained for war, but for survival. More troops landed. Plasma fire rained from the sky. Jacob ducked, rolled, fired again. "We can't hold them forever," he shouted. Scylla pulled him behind a fallen column. "We don't need forever. We just need one moment." Suddenly the enemy stopped firing. A loud mechanical voice echoed, "Scylla of Azure, surrender. Come forward alone. Your children will be spared." Jacob's jaw tightened. "They're lying." Scylla looked at the sky, then at the church. Her voice was steady. "They're afraid of what we carry." Jacob stepped forward. "Then let's show them what we are." He raised his blaster. Scylla raised her voice, a sharp note, a pure sound, carried through the ruins. It echoed across the battlefield. The wind stilled. The memory key, hidden in the altar, responded. A beam of blue light shot into the sky. High, above, the Rovari ship stuttered mid-air. Lights blinked. Systems failed. Jacob grinned. "Looks like your voice does more than sing." Scylla smiled. "It remembers what the stars forgot." Inside the ship, Commander Threx screamed, "All units, retreat, retreat now!" But it was too late. The church had become more than stone and dust. It had become a beacon, not just of history, but of resistance. As the last enemy ship turned and vanished into the sky, Jacob sat down beside the altar. His hands trembled. His body hurt, but he laughed. Scylla sat beside him, her head on his shoulder. "We didn't die," she whispered. "Better," Jacob said. "We lived." Smoke still drifted across the ruins of the old church. The sun had risen higher now, casting golden light over broken stone, shattered steel, and burned walls. Jacob Hale stood at the center of it all, his clothes torn, his arm bleeding, but his feet steady. He was alone now. Scylla and her children had been hidden deep in the underground vault, sealed behind a wall of stone. He had done it himself, because he knew what was coming. The Rovari weren't done. Above him, the sky split again. This time, not a dropship, but a command gunship, black and wide, its engines roaring like thunder. Jacob looked up and wiped blood from his chin. He didn't run. He never planned to run. He picked up his rifle and climbed the broken bell tower one last time. Inside the vault, Scylla pressed her hand against the sealed wall. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She whispered, "Don't do this, Jacob." Elrin sat quietly beside her, holding Tia's hand. They didn't speak. They only listened. Listened to the silence above. The silence before the storm. Jacob reached the top of the tower. His breath was slow, calm. He could see the gunship now, opening its side doors, revealing cannons and a squad of elite Rovari troopers. One of them shouted through a speaker, "Surrender, or die alone." Jacob smiled. "I've been alone before." He raised his rifle, aimed at the ship's core. Intake and fired. Boom. The first shot hit home. Sparks flew, the engine stuttered. Then the return fire began. The bell tower shook under the blast. Stone cracked. Metal screamed. Still, Jacob stood. He fired again, and again. One man, against a ship. And he did not fall inside the vault. Scylla clutched her blade. "I have to go to him," she said. But the children stopped her. Tia whispered, "He told us to stay safe." Elrin looked at her, tears in his eyes. "He's giving us time." Scylla fell to her knees. "No, he's giving us everything." Above, the tower finally broke. Jacob's last bullet fired as the floor collapsed. He fell with the stone. Dust and smoke swallowed him. The ship hovered over the ruins. The Rovari commander inside gave the final order. "Drop the bomb." But before it could fall, the clouds above the ship ripped open. A new ship descended, sleek, silent, silver. Alien markings glowed on its sides, but not Rovari. This was something else, something older. The gunship's systems glitched. Warning lights flashed. Beam of pure light fired from the new ship, slicing through the Rovari engines. 1 second later, the gunship exploded in the sky. Fire rained down, not on the church, but far beyond. Scylla gasped. The ground trembled. The vault wall shook and cracked open. Light poured through, and standing in it was a figure in silver armor holding a long staff. His face was calm, his voice deep. Scylla of Azure. The call reached us. You are not forgotten. She stepped out slowly, children behind her. The figure bowed. We are the guardians of the first memory, hidden for centuries. But your voice woke the stars. Scylla whispered, Why now? He looked toward the smoking tower. Because a human stood alone. They found Jacob under the rubble, barely breathing. Scylla rushed to him, holding his face. Stay, with me. He opened one eye, gave her a tired smile. You still hiding? She laughed through tears. Not anymore. The guardian stepped forward and touched Jacob's chest. A soft white light passed from his hand. Jacob gasped, then breathed easier. Together, they walked back to the heart of the church. The altar still stood, the memory key still glowed, and, for the first time, Jacob didn't feel like a visitor. He felt like part of something ancient, something alive. Final lines of Part 6. Scylla turned to him. You stood alone. Jacob replied, I wasn't alone, not really. Because standing, behind him now, were guardians, children, and one alien mother who finally stopped running. 1 week later, the ruins didn't feel like ruins anymore. The broken church still had cracks. The bell tower still leaned. But now, it was alive. Children's laughter echoed through the old halls. Alien and human voices mixed. The air, once filled with smoke and fear, now carried the sound of life. Jacob Hale stood near the new entrance gate, built from melted drone parts and scorched ship steel. A carved symbol now hung above it, a human hand and an alien hand, holding one flame together. Scylla stepped beside him, her silver skin glowing in the soft sunlight. Her eyes followed the children playing near the garden they had planted beside the altar. Elrin chased a glowing insect with another alien boy. Tia sat beside a human girl, drawing stars in the dust. Scylla smiled. They laugh without fear now. Jacob nodded. That's how we win. The guardians of the first memory stayed. For now, they helped rebuild the stone walls. They taught songs of protection and they planted memory seeds across the land. Small glowing stones that would warn if enemies ever returned. One guardian said to Jacob, You stood alone, but your heart held many. Jacob replied, I was never meant to fight, but I was meant to protect. Scylla and Jacob rebuilt the altar not for worship, but for welcome. It became a meeting place, a school, a shelter. They called it simply the place of peace. Wounded travelers came, lost children arrived. Refugees followed the stars to find the tower that once glowed with defiance. And Jacob? He stayed. Not as a soldier, not as a fighter, but as family. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Jacob sat on the church steps, watching the sky. Scylla joined him with 2 cups of warm broth. She handed him one. You saved me. Jacob sipped slowly. No, you saved yourself. I just refused to let you do it alone. She laughed quietly. You're too humble for a hero. He smiled. And you're too kind for a queen. They sat in silence for a while. Then Scylla asked, Do you ever miss the world before the war? Jacob looked at her, then at the children running past them. No, he said, because I never had a world like this before. Inside the church, the memory key still glowed faintly in the rebuilt altar. Not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as a light, a reminder that sometimes peace is fought for, and sometimes it's chosen. Final scene. A new arrival stepped through the gates. A young alien girl, her face tired, her clothes torn. She looked up at the sign above the door. Jacob walked toward her with a kind smile. "You hungry?" he asked. She nodded. He led her inside. And behind them the wind whispered through the cracked walls of the old church, a sound not of ghosts or war, but of home. The place once meant for prayers had become a place where no one, human or alien, would ever be forgotten again.